Is set up, a question occurred to me, and I'd like to have you think about it. And this is the question, and you can just talk to each other for a second in answering it. How rigorous was your preparation for class when you were a freshman? You got to go back, right? Remember? Way back when? Think about going to class. And how rigorous was your preparation? Just talk to each other for a minute. Describe what you remember of your experience back then. All right, that's pretty good. Now turn the question to this. How rigorous is the preparation of the average freshman, the preparation for class of the average freshman at your campus or on this campus or wherever you are? How would you describe the rigor of preparation for class for the average student at BYU or wherever you're from? Go ahead and talk to. I've asked this question to students for many years, and the way I ask it is for you know your colleagues well here at BYU Hawaii, and what percentage of them went to class on any given day, Wednesday, 10 o'clock? Having carefully read the material and studied. And their numbers, privately given, are not usually very high. Somewhere around 30% is what they'll say. They feel like 30% of their colleagues around campus study the material carefully, and we could use the word rigorously, and went to class in that situation. I didn't, but I wasn't a great student in my freshman year or my sophomore year. Things got better as we went along, but I had learned to plug and chug. I had learned to manage towards the grade and to play an academic game. And so I wasn't going to class particularly well prepared, but if the teacher was going to bring up a conversation and it was interesting, I was happy to talk plenty, kind of engage. But my engagement was probably, it was pretty superficial. I've been interested in this problem because we talk here about prepare and engage. But in order to engage, we have to have prepare. And we have to be very careful with what we think we mean by prepare and what kind of cognitive activity we're going to hold our students accountable for and invite them into when they come to class. This problem has interested me a lot because when I decided I was really going to pursue teaching, the craft of teaching, and try to get a lot better at it, I was having wonderful classes, I thought. I would go, this was at Loyola in the day, and I would go and I would be teaching along, and I always did discussion-based classes. Students piped up quite a bit and talked. It was always that 20% of the students making 80% of the comments, kind of a problem, but I would try to pull other people in, and I felt I was feeling kind of good about it, but suspicious that all this work I was doing to prepare my lectures and good discussions and ask the right question of them was still leaving us without deep and transformative engagement of the material. And I was doing assessment and evaluations that were confirming that this was the case. Students were getting the grades they were after. Student evaluations were very high, but I knew that it was falling short of the possibility. And but they were happy, and there was plenty of zeal. I mean, there was energy in the classroom, but I wasn't convinced, and I didn't believe that there was really deep learning that where they were encountering an idea that was transforming their way of seeing the world and interpreting the world and feeling and behaving. So it's a problem. It's one that I have struggled with. I think it's common. I've been to a lot of classes over the years in my life. I would say that probably 15 to 20% of the students that I had did come to class well prepared, just because that's what they did. I didn't require it. It wasn't structured, but they were assigned something to read, and they did study, and they came to class having studied and studied fairly well. But there was another 80% that I was suspicious were not really studying before class. They were coming to class, taking notes and cramming before the exam and getting the grade, like I had learned to do also. But it seemed to be a mistake to leave the situation at that 15 or 20% who would seriously study before class. So I turned a corner on this one day. I'm back at Loyola 22 or 3 years ago now, and I was lecturing on something really interesting, but I had become suspicious of my pedagogy. I was kind of standing outside of myself, looking, at the class and me, and thinking about things, and I'd wanted so bad to be a good teacher, and all my energy had really focused on me and my delivery and my presentation and my questions and the way I was going to build, their understanding from here to here to here, and I had a moment where the thought occurred to me in real pronounced terms: Chad, you're teaching answers to questions they don't have. And it was a strong thought. It grabbed me and sort of said, well, they're not fully into this because they never had the question in the first place. You had the question. I had the question. And I was teaching them the answer, and I was carefully kind of laying out the answer, and here's where we're going to go, and here's how we're going to do this. And they were passively following me. They weren't. They weren't exactly constructing the journey. There was this interesting relationship between me and them. I was the answers. I wasn't the questions. And then so I sort of started thinking about that and how that ties into their preparation and what I would expect them to do to prepare for class. What kind of cognitive work? What did I want them to really do? We can say, read the material. Here, that's your assignment. Read those 35 pages. But it began to occur to me that's not enough. I need to know what I want to have. I need to know what experience I want to have them have in the 2 hours of study before class. I was sure, after thinking about my experience, that learning that occurs without a question isn't very much learning. The question is what prepares the soil. It tills it, it fertilizes it, it prepares something to grow. The questioning mind, the searching mind, what could I do to have them move into that mind and be in that mode before class, in class, and there was, of course, much more, but the power of the question never left me after those days. So I've tried here in these few minutes to describe a problem that I had. I wanted to make some changes. But I remembered the principle of inertia from a physics class. You remember that principle? Remember? Inertia? An object in motion stays in motion until there's sufficient force, external force, to turn it. And I knew I wanted to turn my students, but I knew that they and I were institutionalized. We were habitual in our way of kind of doing class, the story of class, our role, our place in the process. But it began to occur to me that the organizational cultural construction of the role of teacher and student was off in terms of its alignment with learning itself. And but we all occupy these organizational roles, and those roles prescribe to us what we do and how we navigate. But if the roles are wrong, then we have to fix that. What was so interesting to me, Brother Osgothorpe, about the activities began to flow out of it. What if the role of a student, the way it's configured tacitly in the background of organizational culture, is not quite right? What if it's not aligned with learning adequately? So you can see there's a lot of things that were going on in my mind, but in summary of the problem, engagement without serious preparation will always leave our students skating on the surface of the material. They may feel like they've learned, and we may feel like they've learned, but in fact, the learning, if we take a really close look, I think we'll find that it isn't as deep and as transformative as we had dreamed. There are laws of the harvest that have to do with learning. There's heavy cognitive lifting that just simply has to be done. There is too much, in my estimation, of form without substance when it comes to learning. And as we strive to teach our students the principles of life and living, one that we all have to strive for is substance and not just form. So I've got just 5 minutes for the solution. That's not too good, but let's do it anyway. So here's the solution. You already know it. To teach is to learn. It's true, isn't it? As soon as one occupies the role of teacher or Sunday school president, their mind and their attitudes and their feelings, their cognitive work begins to change. To teach, to occupy the role of the teacher, is to have a paradigm shift. And it's ironic, isn't it? Because at a university, it is the students who are supposed to learn and the teachers who are supposed to teach. But since to teach is to learn, then the solution is to make all of our students what? Teachers. And how do we do that? How do we do that before class? What I decided to do was that I would give them an assignment, and this is the assignment. I'm going to give you 40 pages to read, 25, 30, whatever it is for that particular class, and that reading is, there's going to be a structure to it, there's going to be a claim, an argument, a main idea, it's going to have supporting reasons, evidences, qualifications, and so on. Your task is to read it, but while you read it, you must enter into the mind of the teacher, because when you are done reading it, I'm going to ask you to post a video that will be 5 to 6 minutes where you will teach this material. And that will constitute 40% of your grade for this class. So when you teach it, I don't want you to teach it, I don't want you to get online and just talk about 2 or 3 points that you found in the material and just make, elaborate on those. I don't want you to give me a linear teaching of it. The writing went here, 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 and here. The cognitive work I want you to do is more systemic than that. I want you to see the parts and the pieces. I want you to understand the hierarchy, the relationship of the ideas, how they work together to form a whole. And once you've got that, then you're prepared to do a really good 5 to 6 minute summary teaching. Now, this is an extraordinarily difficult assignment for them they're so used to thinking linearly. And just let me account for it, kind of this happened and then this and then this and then this. But I want them to learn to see all that, but to step back from it and see the way in which all those parts and those pieces come together to form a cube. And then once they see how that cube has been formed, that's what really empowers their ability to turn on the camera and for 5 to 6 minutes teach what they have learned. I only grade about 1 out of every 3 or 4 of these, because I want them to do that pretty much every time they read something. And I really don't want them to do it as a student. Now this is a very difficult part of the assignment, but I want them to enter the mind and the heart of a teacher and to have an audience, that they are, to have somebody that they're trying to convey this information to. Now they have a difficult time accomplishing that, because it's hard to get an audience. And I tell them that you don't really have to have an audience, but get a teddy bear out or a soft drink or anything. But get something out and try to teach this to them. I learned this myself when I took a stats class, a 700 level stats class, and I was going to fail it, I was sure, at Ohio where I was doing my PhD. And I struggled. I was working so hard to learn that material, but I wasn't. I was getting a C+, and that's, you can't do that. We can't have the C+. And I came out of class one day, and the room across the hall was empty. And I walked into that room and I put my books down. I was a doctoral student, and I turned around, and for the next 30 minutes, I gave a Pentecostal lecture to an empty classroom on what I had just learned. And I mean it, I was Pentecostal. And I yelled at my students about, why can't you understand this? This is the question. And I went through that whole process, and that saved me in that stats class. To teach is to learn. And so I have to talk them into this, and I have to persuade them of the truth of it, and I have to coach them a lot. But I have found that my students walk into class with that assignment better prepared than anything I'd done in 20 years of effort. I'm sure that's not true. That's not wrong. I'll finish up. Let me just do that real quick, and if it'll load, I'm not sure it will, but it has, in all the effort, all the things that I did, if we don't weight it in relationship to the grade, my experience was that they will not come prepared. It wasn't until I put 40% of the grade on rigorous study before class that I changed their behavior. That was the inertia. That was, I used to beg and plead and, won't you do this, and we'll have a great time and a great discussion. But when they come, when a critical mass of them walk in the room and they really have studied it and they've really analyzed it, then immediately we can move on to application, integration, analysis, all of Bloom's higher level cognitive activities. And that's where, I think that's where we're really powerful. That's where we can train their minds. That's where we can deepen the learning. But if we are locked into spending class time at the lower cognitive levels of understanding, then we are left skating across the surface of learning. So all of that is in here, as well as the syllabus has a page and a half of how I outlined the assignment for them. It does take about 2 weeks before they finally settle into this, and a lot of feedback on what I expect in terms of the cognitive work to come ready to engage. Thank you.